Good day chaps, so today's video is going to cover a series of quite rare concept tanks, the GSOR 1008 series, drawn up for the MOD in the 1960s. One of these vehicles has just been released into the Super Test server for World of Tanks, but this video will look at the original drawings of the vehicles and discuss their designs. The GSOR 1008, or General Staff Operational Requirement number 1008, are some of the rarest of the official vehicles ordered by the MOD. Today, only 4 pictures remain, one for each of the proposals, and some limited text on each machine. So what information do we know? We know that these are official projects issued as a General Staff Operation Requirement, and therefore not a private or School of Tank Technology experimental series. This lets us know that at some point a requirement was set for a specification, and we know from the trailing number and the equipment fitted that the date was between 1961, when GSOR 1006 was issued, and 1963 with the GSOR 1010. We can also pin a date due to the equipment and other aspects. Given its swing-fire missiles, we know it has to be post-1961, as well as the hydraulic tilting suspension, which was worked on by Sven Berge, the father of the S-Tank, and alongside Richard Ogorkowitz on the contentious project at one point. The use of liquid fuel armours is also indicative of this period. So we can narrow the dates down to between 1961 and 1963, and we can look at all 4 vehicles and find the common aspects to reverse engineer the specifications by analysing the commonalities between each vehicle and then comparing from other projects at the time. For example, all 4 vehicles share some common features between them. All have a 2-man crew. All have autoloaders, low profile and liquid fuel armours. And unlike the other projects at the time, the weight limit does not seem to be a crucial factor, which tells us they are not meant for rapid air deployment, which was a requirement for the preceding and following series of vehicles. The vehicles all appear to be 7 foot 10 inches or lower, and 2 of them feature adjustable suspension. The overall design indicates that a low profile was a set requirement, and as none have engine data or speed allocated, which is often a requirement, and so may have been considered a secondary issue over the defensive and offensive capability, and coupling in the vehicle's limited turret traverse arcs on most, these will fulfill the role of line plugs to ambush vehicles and use a barrage of fire while being able to withstand incoming fire, particularly missiles. Due to the 2-man crew, these vehicles would not have been designed to excel in manoeuvre warfare, and would have relied on ambush tactics, as many share features with the older, lighter, contentious tank. So let's take a look at each vehicle a bit, and from the limited data we do have. All 4 vehicles share the same GSOR number, with a different scheme number added to each vehicle. Starting with scheme number 1, this is the vehicle going into the World of Tanks game. This is a 2-man tank with a low profile of 7 foot 10 inches, making it the tallest of the 4. This is partly due to it having a manned turret with a single commander and driver, both located in the central fighting compartment. The vehicle had dual controls, letting the commander drive or the driver shoot, and was to be equipped with a 105mm high-velocity gun. The turret had a bustle-mounted autoloader system with 16 rounds in a magazine and a further 34 rounds stored in the hull. The turret is an oscillating type split between 2 layers, with a high gun mounting to align with the rear autoloader. The vehicle had an optical tracking acquisition and radar, or OPTAR rangefinder, that used pulses of infrared light to acquire its target, with this itself first devised and tested on contentious previously, and was also tested on the American T-95 tank. The turret had 360 degrees of rotation and a gun depression of plus or minus 10 degrees. The shells were for single-piece type, and the case is ejected out of a small hatch at the back of the bustle. The most distinctive feature is the very large forward liquid fuel armour bulge, taking up for fully the first 3/4 of the vehicle. This usually consisted of diesel fuel in a honeycomb structure, which provided excellent protection against shape-charged warheads. The reason for this fuel armour was that it was realised fairly early on that the penetration depth of a shaped charge was essentially hydrodynamic in nature, which meant that the depth of penetration should be inversely proportional to the square root of the density of the target material, and in testing, low-density materials such as sand, glass, water and diesel offered excellent reductive qualities to shape charge attacks relative to their weight and density compared to steel. This gave about 1 to 2 foot of extra material for any heat round to push through, offering an additional 600mm of protection behind the 120mm of steel and 40mm liner, before hitting the inner 60mm layer of steel, for some 760mm of protection against shaped charges, which was exceptional for its time. This would have also had a fairly decent effect on armour-piercing rounds of the period too. The turret, however, was relatively thinly armoured, with about 6 inches or 152mm of protection, tapering up to about 120 angled back near the top. However, the entire turret front is only about 1.1 foot high, making it a very small target. Other than that, the data is quite scarce. The vehicle has 5 road wheels, most likely on a torsion bar suspension system, a front idler, rear-driven sprocket, an unknown engine, and a gearbox which is not listed, although likely this would have been a Rover Meteorite engine, and the vehicle's weight was 44 tons. So on to Scheme 2. The second vehicle drawn up was similar in many ways to the first. The vehicle consisted of a 2-man crew with dual controls, although the driver was mounted in a forward reclined position. The vehicle had a more angled frontal glacis plate to lower the profile about 7 inches compared to the first vehicle, and the engine and cooling are in a distinct raised rear section. The weapon remains the 105mm high-velocity gun, but this time it's in a remote gun pod with a commander located in the hull. The gun had a built-in autoloader with 21 rounds in total, but after this it was unable to reload. To increase its firepower, there are 2 automated swing-fire missile launchers mounted on either side of the turret cheeks, with 3 rounds each. The cast turret face has 10 degrees of elevation and 7.5 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty poor, and a woefully below average gun arc of just 10 degrees to either side. The fire control system is again the Optar system, but with an added fibre optic telescopic periscope to see above objects. The armour itself is not specified in steel thickness, however it's likely comparable to the first vehicle, and also has the heavy fuel armour to the front, which, if given as a requirement, is likely to be the same levels as Scheme 1. So Scheme 3. The third scheme is quite a bit different from the first two in many ways. Of the 4, the protection aspect on this one is extreme. Both the hull and the turret have liquid fuel armour nearly 1000mm thick, behind 80mm of well-sloped steel and a further 80mm of backing plate. This makes the hull near immune to the firepower of the period. The liquid armour is also found on the turret cheeks and to the same depth, as the crew are located towards the rear of the turret, with both the driver and commander located around where a bustle would normally be, with a single large hatch. The gun remains the high-velocity 105mm piece, with a rotary belt feed for the ammunition, with a left and right magazine consisting of 11 rounds apiece, with one in the gun, for a total of 23 rounds. This conveyor belt of rounds would feed the ammunition into a breech, with the opening facing down, and then each round quickly fed upwards. The gun itself is of a fixed arrangement into the cast turret, as due to the fuel armour the gun mantler is not possible, and the turret rotation is like the previous vehicle, limited to 10 degrees left and right. To add extra firepower, the Scheme 3 tank comes with 6 swing-fire missiles, located in 3 launch boxes to either side of the rear, with controls to fire individually or salvo the missiles on up to 3 targets, with 2 missiles per vehicle allocated. Due to the lack of gun mantler, the vehicle uses an adjustable suspension to elevate and depress the gun, much like the Swedish S-tank. This would enable the vehicle to tilt the gun up and down by 9 degrees. The overall suspension consists of 5 road wheels, with a rear-driven sprocket, a front idler, and an overall height of 7 foot 3 inches. The final vehicle is Scheme 4. This vehicle is very similar to the previous one. It has the same turret type, although it has an Optar rangefinder built in, but otherwise both crews are located towards the rear. It also has the same 105mm gun, and 6 swing-fire missiles on left and right rear launch positions. The primary difference between the two is the ammunition loader, which consists of a strip clip left and right with 7 rounds loaded, 4 to the right and 3 to the left, with a further 28 rounds stowed in the hull. Due to this rearrangement of ammunition, the vehicle has a lower profile of just 6 foot 8 inches, and utilises the same tipping suspension, giving it 9 degrees gun depression, and further being able to lower its height to 6 foot. The turret has also a marginally better traverse arc of 15 degrees left and right. So there you have them, guys. These are the 4 designs drawn up in the 1961 to 63 period. Sadly, not much more is known, as the original information has been lost or binned over the years. There is a chance some of it survived, buried deep in an archive or an attic. While a lot can be extrapolated from what I do have, much more of these will remain a mystery. Hopefully, if you are playing these in model tanks and you want to know a bit more about them, then this video will have been of some help. If you like these, do let us know, give us a like or subscribe or share this channel, as it's still growing, and your support and feedback lets me dig out more interesting things from the archives for yourselves. So until next time chaps, toodle pip.